There's a moment in worship when the noise fades and only one voice matters. Not the band, not the crowd, but God's. Today, we return to 1995, a year where worship songs didn't just fill churches, they filled hearts. These are the songs that brought stillness to chaos, that turned stages into altar, that reminded us of how near God really is. So here's your invitation. Which worship song in 1995 brought you closest to God? Share your memory below, and let's honor those moments of surrender together. Now, let the countdown begin. At song number 10, we find a chorus that didn't come to impress. It came to invite. More Love, More Power by Jeff DeDeo and Vineyard Worship wasn't written for a stage, but for the secret place. Long before it made its way onto youth retreat playlists or Sunday night worship nights, it began in small, spirit-hungry rooms.
I will worship you with all of my strength, for you are my...
Places where the music faded into the background, and all that remained was desire. When people sang "More of You in My Life," they weren't performing, they were pleading. It was the kind of song that made you close your eyes and whisper it again after the music stopped. Echoing Mark 12:30, this wasn't just about loving God. It was about loving Him with everything: heart, soul, mind, strength. And in that cry, the church found something more than melody. It found surrender. Quietly, this song crossed borders and denominations. Not because it shouted, but because it whispered what every heart was already feeling. At number 9, we arrive at a song that didn't need a bridge or chorus to reach heaven. I Love You, Lord by Lori Klein was the kind of melody you didn't just sing, you breathed. It was the song people turned to when words ran out and only affection remained, in hospital rooms, in midnight prayers, in moments of quiet desperation. Its beauty was never in complexity, it was in its honesty. Just one line, wrapped in sincerity, was enough to become a complete offer. It echoed the raw truth of Psalm 18:1, I love you, O Lord, my strength, not shouted from rooftops, but whispered in the dark. Lori Klein wrote it in a season of spiritual dryness, unsure if anyone else would even hear it, but the Spirit breathed life into that one whispered offer, and it became one of the most treasured worship ballads of all time. Sometimes, the smallest flame lights the deepest places. Sliding into number 8 is a song that didn't just fill a room, it filled a void. Draw Me Close by Kelly Carpenter was written from a place of deep spiritual need, and you could hear it in every note.
Draw me close to you. Never let me
It begins with soft piano, but what it really plays is the sound of a heart reaching out in the dark. Whether sung as a solo or by an entire congregation, this was the moment when the noise fell away and something sacred settled in. Never Let Me Go wasn't poetic flair, it was survival, a lifeline for anyone who felt the distance and longed to close it.
'Cause you're all I want.
It echoed James 4:8 with a vulnerability that was hard to fake. Draw near to God, and He will draw near to you.
You're all I've ever needed.
Carpenter didn't write this to make a chart. He wrote it to find his way back to God. That raw honesty is exactly what made it unforgettable.
Help me know you are near.
Sometimes the most powerful songs are the ones that were never meant to be heard by anyone except Him. At number 7 is a song that felt less like music and more like a shelter. You Are My Hiding Place, penned by Michael Ledner and tenderly revived by Selah, wasn't just something people sang, it was something they ran to.
My hiding place, you always feel.
This was the song that came after the sermon, when hearts were exposed and silence hung heavy. It didn't rush, it didn't demand, it simply opened its arms. Whether whispered during altar ministry or played over candlelit memorials, it wrapped worshipers in quiet reassurance. The words echoed Psalm 32:7, You are my hiding place. You will protect me from trouble, with such tenderness that you almost felt the embrace mid-lyric.
In the strength of the Lord, I will
Though originally written in the 1980s, by 1995 it was still ever present in worship services across the world, timed especially in moments of loss, fear, or stillness. Some songs lift you up, but this one gently pulled you in, like a refuge you didn't know you needed until the first note. At number 6 comes a song that didn't raise hands as much as it lowered hearts. I Stand in Awe by Mark Altrage was more than a melody. It was a reverent pause, a sacred breath held in stillness.
You are beautiful beyond description.
From the first line, the atmosphere shifted. This wasn't just another chorus, it was a threshold, often sung slowly in near silence.
Too marvelous for words.
It felt like stepping onto holy ground where even sound had to kneel. The lyrics didn't try to explain God, they just marveled at it. It echoed the reverence of Psalm 33:8. Let all the earth fear the Lord. Let all the inhabitants of the world stand in awe of him.
And I stand in awe of you.
Written during Altrage's time with the Sovereign Grace movement, the song wasn't flashy or loud, but that was exactly its power. In a decade filled with joyful celebration, this became the quiet classic that taught worshipers how to be still and tremble in wonder. Crashing into number 5 with Open Arms and Open Hearts is The Power of Your Love by Jeff Bullock.
I come to you, let my heart be changed. Renew.
Yes, it showed up on the praise list too, but here we honor the deeper current flowing beneath its melody. This wasn't just a chorus, it was a conversation. Hold Me Close, Let Your Love Surround Me wasn't sung with volume, but with vulnerability. It was the moment in the service where eyes shut, hands lifted, and the Spirit seemed to breathe over the room. The transformation wasn't just in the lyrics, it was in the people singing them. Romans 12 verse 2 comes to life. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Bullock wrote this during a season of exhaustion and spiritual burnout, and that ache gave the song its soul. What began as a personal cry for renewal became a healing anthem for churches across the world. In its chords was a kind of holy therapy, a reminder that sometimes God restores us not with answers, but with love. At number 4, we meet a song that didn't need verses or bridges to shake the soul. Just one line, lifted like incense. I Exalt Thee by Pete Sanchez Jr. was simple, yes, but in its simplicity it carried weight. This was the song that slipped into worship sets almost unnoticed, and yet lingered long after the last chord faded.
I exalt thee.
Sung in loops, sometimes barely above a whisper, sometimes rising like a wave, it became the heartbeat of deep surrender. It wasn't about performance. It was about presence. Psalm 34:3 echoes through every repetition. Let us exalt his name together.
Exalt thee. I exalt.
The power of this song wasn't in its structure, it was in its posture. Written during a quiet moment of personal prayer, it spread across decades as the soundtrack to spontaneous worship everywhere, from packed revival tents to quiet living rooms. In a world that often chases complexity, this song reminded us that one word, sung from the heart, is more than enough. At number 3 is a song that didn't just close services, it opened hearts. Come Just As You Are, beautifully delivered by Crystal Lewis and written by Joseph Sabalik, was the altar call of the 90s.
Come just as you are.
The lights dimmed, the pastor's voice softened, and then, like a whisper from heaven, came the invitation. Hear the Spirit call. This wasn't a moment for hype.
Hear the Spirit call.
It was a moment for healing. You could feel the tension in the room melt as people stood up, eyes brimming, feet slowly moving forward. It didn't pressure. It welcomed. Its heartbeat was Revelation 22 verse 17. The Spirit and the bride say, "Come." First sung at Harvest Crusades, it quickly became a global anthem of grace. Gentle, persistent, and personal. Whether in arenas, church halls, or quiet devotions at home, it gave countless people the courage to say yes to Jesus. Not later, not perfect, just as they were. Runner-up at number 2 is a song that didn't come from a studio. It came from a silence. Heart of Worship by Matt Redman may have been officially released a bit later, but by 1995, it was already echoing through the halls of worship leaders and hungry hearts.
When the music fades, all is stripped away. And
It It wasn't flashy, and that was the point. "I'm Coming Back to the Heart of Worship" wasn't just a lyric. It was a personal confession, a reset button for the soul. In services where the music had grown too polished and the lights too bright, this song brought everything back to center. John 4:24 whispered in every line, "Worship in spirit and in truth."
Coming back to the heart of worship when it's all about.
The story behind it is now legend. The church intentionally shut down its sound system for a season to strip worship of performance and reclaim its purpose. And in that quiet, a revolution was born. This wasn't a song people sang at God. It was one they sang toward Him, raw and real. And at number 1, "Shout to the Lord" by Darlene Shetch. You might recognize this one from our praise countdown too. And that's on purpose, because in 1995, this song didn't fit neatly into one box. It transcended them all. It opened services with fire and closed them with tears. It was the loudest voice in the room and the deepest cry in the heart. When worshipers sang, "My comfort, my shelter,"
My Jesus, my Savior, oh, there is no.
they weren't just mouthing words. They were holding on. This song met people in hospital rooms, in broken marriages, in quiet desperation, and gave them a reason to lift their voices anyway. Psalm 98:4 called us to shout for joy. Psalm 18 verse 2 reminded us why. "The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer." Somehow, Darlene's song wrapped both of those truths into one sweeping, unforgettable anthem. It was written in weakness, but birthed in unshakable faith. And what began as one woman's prayer in a small corner of Australia became the sound of a global church falling in love with God all over again. Still sung, still powerful, still true. Worship doesn't begin with sound. It begins with surrender. And the songs we've walked through today, from whispered confessions to soaring declarations, reminded us of that truth. These weren't just melodies from 1995. They were moments. Moments that helped us kneel on the outside and the inside. So now it's your turn. Which song carried your heart into the arms of God? Drop your story in the comments. Let's celebrate what He did and is still doing. And if this journey stirred something in you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and come along as we continue through decades of worship that shaped souls and shook heaven. Because the songs may change, but the one we worship never will.